Hi everyone, welcome to Unit 2, Equations and Inequalities, Lesson 1, Multi-Step Equations. So in this video, we are going to be working on solving multi-step equations. So let's talk about the steps to solving a multi-step equation. Step 1, distribute first when necessary. If the problem has a distributive property, that must happen first. Step 2, combine like terms, also when necessary, because if there aren't any like terms on that side of the equation, you don't need to combine them. And step 3, solve, isolate x. So notice how steps 1 and 2 are basically simplifying that side of the equation until it's time to solve. So let's take a look at number 1. In number 1, if you scan the left-hand side of the equation, you notice that there is no distributive property because you don't see a parentheses with a multiplier. But I do see like terms. So let's combine them. It looks like I have a like term of 9x and minus 7x. That combines to make 2x. And then I have like terms of plus 1, take away 5, which makes negative 4. And that's equal to negative 20. Now that I've combined like terms, I can start solving. Remember that we're trying to isolate x, so we're going to work from the outside in. We're going to work from the outside operator to the closest operator to x. So since x is multiplying with 2, the division of 2 will be the last thing we do. So let's add 4 to both sides. Negative 4 plus 4 makes 0. So I end up with 2x is equal to negative 20 plus 4, which is negative 16. And then I divide by 2 on both sides. 2 divided by 2 is 1 to get a final answer of x is equal to negative 8. So this was a problem where we only had to combine like terms, and then after we combined like terms, we solved for x. Number 2, I see the distributive property right here where my negative 7 is multiplying into 3a minus 1. So first thing we want to do, let me use black. First thing we want to do is distribute negative 7 into the parentheses to get negative 21a plus 7. Now I'm going to solve. Dividing by negative 21 will be the last step we do. So let's subtract 7 on both sides. Positive 7 minus 7 is 0. So that removes that from the right side, balancing it off to make 83 is equal to negative 21a. Nope, I made a mistake. 91 minus 7 is not 83. It is 84. Is equal to negative 21a. Now we'll divide by negative 21 on both sides. Negative 21 divided by negative 21 is 1. And then 84 divided by negative 21 is negative 7, and that's equal to a. Now for both of these, first of all, let me say that this one only had distributive property. Notice how all we did on the right side was distribute. There were no like terms to combine. Okay? For all of these equations, as we've said, you can take this answer for x, plug it back in to the original equation to check if that solution is correct. So remember what that means, a solution being correct, is that the value can be replaced for the variable and it will make a true statement. So you can self-check these problems. Now taking a look at number 3, I scan around to look for distributive property, as that should be the first thing I do if it is in my equation and needs to be simplified. So I see the distributive property right here with negative 5 as my distributor. So I bring 4m down and I distribute negative 5 into the parentheses, which gives me negative 15m minus 50. Because of negative 5 times positive 10, we'll change that into a minus 50. That's equal to 126. So I've done the distributive property. Now I'm going to check to see if I can combine like terms, which I can. I have like term of 4n minus 15m. 4 take away 15 is negative 11. m minus 50, that's equal to 126. Add 50 to both sides to start isolating our variable. 126 plus 50 is 176. Then I will divide both sides by negative 11 to get a final answer of m equals negative 16. Now, fun fact, why are we crossing these negative 11s out? Because negative 11 divided by negative 11 is 1, and you end up with 1m, or an isolated m. Now, I'd like to bring your attention to number 4, which number 4 has 2 counts of distributive properties. Okay, we'll highlight one in green. Here's a distributive property. And we'll highlight the other one in yellow. Here's a distributive property. And how do I know that the yellow one is distributive property? Because my negative is a multiplier into the parentheses. That negative is like a -1, and it will change both the sign of the k and the sign of the +5. So let's distribute. -3 times k is -3k. -3 times -8 is is +24. Negative times k is -k, and negative times +5 is -5, and that's equal to 23. So we had 2 distributions that occurred, the green and the yellow. Now we can combine like terms. I can combine -3k with -k to get -4k, and +24 take away 5 to get a +19, and that's equal to 23. Now I will subtract 19 from both sides to start isolating k. Okay, and then we'll divide by -4 on both sides to get a 1 here, which will give us 1k, or just k, and that's equal to -1. Again, you can self-check your answers, your solution, by plugging it back into the equation and following the order of operations, which is why we learned that first. Follow the order of operations to ensure that your solution is 23. Now I'd like you to pause the video and try number 5 and answer the question. I do want you to note that you do have a distributive property, so I'll highlight that for you. Watch your sign on that distributive property and go ahead and try that now. Now that you've tried number 5, let's take a look at number 6. Does number 6 have distributive property? If so, where? And then try number 6 and answer the question now. Looking at number 7, does number 7 have the distributive property? If so, where? And now try number 7 now. In number 8, you do have the distributive property, and your distributor is a fraction. That doesn't change how you do business. You will still be multiplying 1/2 into the parentheses. So pause the video and try number 8 now. For number 9, we want to be super careful that we are following the distribution and the order of operations correctly. It's a big trap here that a student would think that they have to do 7 minus 5/2 and then distribute that into the parentheses. That is incorrect. The first thing that should happen before any subtraction is any multiplication or division. In this case, distributive property is happening right in this green area, and distribution is multiplication, and multiplication always comes before any form of subtraction. So as a result, let's distribute. -5/2 times 8 is -40/2r, and I will fix that in a minute. -5/2 times -6 is positive. Negative times a negative is a positive 30/2. And then I'm going to bring down the 7, and I'm going to bring down the +2r. So notice how all we took care of in blue was the distribution of -5/2 into the parentheses. So I'm going to clean this up. 40/2 is 20, 15, okay. So we took care of the distributive property. Now let's take care of our like terms. We have a like term of 7 and 15 to get 22. And we have like terms of -20r and +2r to get -18r. And that's equal to 32. Now be very careful here and verbalize in your head. R is multiplying to -18. So the last step should be a division of -18. So we don't want to touch the -18 until the end, which means we want to zero out this 22. So we're going to subtract 22 from both sides. 22 minus 22 is 0. That shifts the weight over to the right and keeping it balanced. -18r is equal to 10. right? Yep. And then divide by negative 18 on both sides. All right, and we could leave our answer as negative, and let's just reduce this to 5 over 9. They're reduced by 2, reduced by 2. So r is equal to negative 5 over 9. Now don't be afraid of the fraction. There's nothing wrong with that fraction. You could plug it back in and carefully do the math to make sure that your answer comes out to 32. The last problem in our notes for lesson 1 on multi-step equations has us translating a verbal expression into a multi-step equation and then solving it. So let's work on the translation. It says 5 times the difference of twice a number and 3 decreased by the sum of the number and 8 equals 13. Well, we could start with equals 13. And let's analyze this. 5 is multiplying to a difference. The only way 5 could multiply to a subtraction problem is using the distributive property, or expressing it as a distribution. So 5 is multiplying to a difference. A difference of whom? Let's figure out who and who are subtracting. So the difference of twice a number and 3. Twice a number and 3. The difference of twice a number and 3. These are the two components of that subtraction. So 5, we got 5 times the difference of twice a number and 3, decreased by, so this value is going to be decreased by the sum of the number and 8. Okay, so this value is going to be decreased by this value. Notice how I put it in parentheses, because if I didn't put the parentheses, it would look like it's just being decreased by the number. It just looks like it's being decreased by the number and then added to 8, which is not what it says. It's being decreased by this, which means I have to group it to show that this value is being decreased by this value. Now what I would like you to do, now that we've translated, is pause the video and solve. Notice how you have 2 counts of distributive property. Make sure that you distribute, combine like terms, and solve for x. To conclude, in this video, we solved multi-step equations. We talked about the steps to solve for x and the things we needed to do before we could solve for x, including the distributive property and combining like terms. We reviewed a bunch of different types of problems. You tried many on your own, and we did one example where we translated from English to math. Thank you for watching. Thank you for learning.